You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the E-Marketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
And I'm here with Lisa Beyer from the Beyer Group. We're going to talk about a bunch of things, including SEO, PR, social media, etc. But I think it's always fun to hear what the origin story is for an entrepreneur who starts an agency or a company. So, Lisa, why don't you start off by giving us the origin story for the Beyer Group?
Sure. Well, thanks, Kevin, for having me on as your guest. I really am honored. And so the Beyer Group started out as a traditional PR agency. That's really my roots are in traditional PR, pre-digital days. And I got to a point where things were pretty boring in the PR world, like literally nothing had changed for 100 years in traditional PR. And then all of a sudden we got hit with Google and search engines and social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. And all of a sudden public relations became a lot more interesting, in my opinion, and more advantageous and really put brands more in control. So I transitioned into really focusing my traditional agency into an agency that taps into the superpowers of using SEO and social media as part of the strategy. And I was one of the only people that I graduated from the College of Journalism at University of Florida that actually stuck to public relations. I majored in PR, and most of my friends that majored in PR went off into sales and didn't really stick in PR. And I really loved it. I was on the high school yearbook staff, and I just kind of always loved newsletters and magazine and journalism. So public relations was kind of like something that kind of fell right into in between all of that, and I have a passion for it.
Great. Well, one of the reasons that Did It expanded from SEO into PR and storytelling and digital PR, as well as social media, is that like the same piece of content works so hard in so many different ways now as comparison to 15 years ago. And the other element is that, PR professionals 15 years ago would think about getting a press hit as a specific sort of light bulb flash in time, and then it was over and gone with. And now, right, obviously a PR hit is permanent. It's in Google forever, right? Yeah. And it has a lot of value as far as controlling the SERP, right? So we like to really think about SEO, not just about getting clients' domains to rank, but really about controlling as much of the SERP as possible. Have you been sort of pitching that holistic view for social and for PR as well when you talk to clients?
I do. And, I thought, I think it was about, around 12 or 13 years ago that I went to Search Engine Strategies. Do you remember?
Sure.
The conference. And I thought, I'm just trying to educate myself for my clients who are asking me about what is this PPC? What is, all these this terminology. And I went to SES and I came out of there after 3 days. I felt like I just received like an MBA or something. I had this huge aha moment, and I could just see the possibility of public relations content and how it can influence Google and how it could influence, searching in social media channels. And I was like, I had this huge sense of urgency. And because I felt like every PR agency, PR pro is going to figure this out just like I did. And it's still very surprising that very few PR professionals really walk the walk, talk the talk of like how to optimize and how to really leverage SEO and, have PR influences SEO and SEO influences PR and vice versa with social. So I do preach it to clients, but it's also it's an educational process too, because I don't know, you tell me, Kevin, but like I still see so many brands, large and small, working in silos where PR is still separate from SEO. And it's not that it's like exactly the same, but they should be talking to each other and strategizing together, even if at the very least they would learn from each other. And PPC too. What about you? Do you see the same thing?
Absolutely. I mean, certainly within SEO and PPC, the keywords are sort of the core foundation in both of those areas. But even at the sort of one level above keywords, where you're talking about concepts and audiences, that's also really useful to know because of all the extra targeting levers you have in PPC, right? In SEO, you don't get to pick targeting in a categorical or into segments the same way as you do in PPC. But with regards to sort of the PR, I still see a lot of that siloing as well. Often I will recommend that we set up an educational call with the PR team if they're in-house, or even the PR agency. I'm not worried about sort of giving away the secrets, because at this point, if they haven't, found the SEO religion yet, I sort of feel like it's just a good deed for me to tell them, by the way, you should at least ask for a link when you're placing a story.
Exactly.
Like the 101 level stuff, right? And then as far as, thematically and storytelling and trying to think about, how do you change your sort of inverted pyramid writing style when you're thinking about SEO, not just a journalistic spin on it, right? And how do you advise reporters on ways to get their stories to rank better, right? Which is now you're doing favors for the reporters too, as a PR agency or PR professional. So yeah, there's still an amazing amount of room for improvement in sort of that holistic view. I'm not sure whether we should blame the universities for not including SEO in the curriculum or not, but it is often the first time that a PR professional has even been made aware of, how Google and Bing work, right? And especially if they're fresh out of school. So yeah, I think there's room for improvement. I think we should probably both look at it as a huge opportunity.
Exactly. And, two things. Speaking of universities, so I actually taught at University of Florida for 4 years as an adjunct. And I taught social media through the lens of a public relations professional, but I also had a module on just basic SEO for the college students to learn. And you're right, like that's not really taught, and there's not a specific course that's like, search engine optimization for marketing or anything like that. So I do think that a lot could be said for having the universities integrate some sort of SEO course in the marketing and communications department. And then speaking of secrets, you mentioned secrets. So when I first started integrating SEO and social into my PR strategy, back 12 years ago, it was a huge educational process for my clients and keeping my team educated on the best practices. Everything, was changing so quickly then, and it still is today. So I, speaking at different events and things like that, I'm saying the same thing over and over again. So I wrote my first book, Social PR Secrets, and it's really just, taking that action plan of how to integrate search, social, and PR together, and optimization. And, optimization is like such a keyword, literally, in everything. Like we need to optimize our PR and use keyword phrases in our press releases to get picked up by Google News. I mean, it's just, to me, very basic, and it's not very difficult to learn. So, fast forward to today, I kind of got into that mode with my agency where I was, again, like really frustrated at educating the clients and their expectations, that I decided in May, I gave all my clients 30 or 60 days notice that I'm no longer providing done for you services anymore, because I feel there's such a need for education in this, for all size brands to really embrace the powers of public relations, SEO, and social media. So now, instead of having clients and doing one-to-one stuff, I'm, attempting to do one-to-many, where I'm creating courses on how to, do exactly that, that any brand or any marketer could learn from or just level up. I think there's such a need for education right now.
Yeah, I would agree. It's ongoing because it's a moving ecosystem, right? So obviously, probably everything in your book is still relevant today, but there are probably layers that have come up since your book that need to be addressed in an ongoing curriculum that you would be adjusting over time. So it definitely makes sense for you to continue to provide sort of educational hand-holding, and whether are you doing them as sort of group masterminds? What's the format for the way you're delivering?
So right now I have my first course. It's called Modern PR Secrets, and it is 7 modules, and it's on the platform Teachable. So it's already pre-recorded, and anybody that takes it can take it at their own pace, and just like my book, it's if you see a module that like you don't know anything about and you just want to jump to that one, like it doesn't have to be done in order, and it's super actionable and just filled with resources. So I just try to make it as, add as much value as possible to somebody that might be a novice, or somebody that might be a marketing director that just isn't in tune with, everything that's available, or even talking the talk to agencies. I feel like there's also a need to have some sort of a connection of marketing speak and what to look for and what to ask for when you hire an agency and vice versa.
Yeah, there's certainly, I guess, some vocabulary we all use in the industry, and we have to somewhat be careful and not overuse the vocabulary because certainly business owners may not be aware of the vocabulary, and sometimes marketing professionals on the client side may not be familiar with the vocabulary, but it's great for there to be courseware and resources for them to learn how to do it. Do you anticipate sort of providing supplementary services on a group basis beyond the course as well?
My 2 things that I'm looking at expanding would be coaching and consulting. So I might do some masterminds. I'm kind of like in the middle of this reset of my business, going from an agency model to more of a media and course creator type of model. We were talking before just about how busy you are, and I went through a phase, to be completely transparent, in the beginning of the year where I just suffered from complete burnout from pandemic stuff and just a mix of mental health issues with some of my family. And it just, I'm taking it slow because of that, and just trying not to rush into creating something. And slow is actually better, like the slower pace and the more deliberate, smaller steps. I'm finding I'm having a lot more success with than trying to figure it all at once. So that's in the future. And right now I'm in the process of just finishing the course. It is available. You can get modules 1 through 3 now. I'll have all the modules complete by the end of the month. But yeah, I learned a lot. Yeah, I learned a lot going through the pandemic for sure. So don't get too stressed and don't be too busy is my advice.
That's great advice. Thanks, Lisa. I did notice you launched a podcast as well, right? And was there a separate catalyst for that as far as deciding you wanted to create a podcast?
Yeah. So the podcast is called Social PR Secrets, and it's really just a real-time version of my book. And I actually did that at the first 30 days of lockdown last year, 2020 in March. That's when I decided to do this, and just a great, hopefully inspiration to people is that if you have been creating content, like maybe YouTube videos or doing different Facebook Lives, which I had been doing over the past 4 or 5 years. And I just realized, I had probably 63 pieces of content that were either video or audio or both that I could take and turn into podcast episodes. So that's what I did the first 30 days is I edited all of these different things that I've been doing over the past 4 or 5 years that were in all different places, and just took the audio, and a lot of it was very, very relevant still. And so I, launched my podcast with 54 episodes, I think, last April or May. And now I'm on episode 140 or something like that. So wow. I really enjoy interviewing experts and, doing that type of, knowledge sharing and offering very actionable tips for either entrepreneurs or brands on how to, the theme of it is still integrating search and social and PR together. But then we talk about, very specific things like Facebook advertising, for example, because I do believe that there is a place for paid for public relations, for sure, which used to be church and state, if you remember.
Yeah, it's actually fascinating to see the 2 areas where PR agencies have sort of crossed over into, I guess, the paid arena. And I think the 2 catalysts for that are really social in particular, because the same post that often a PR agency might have been involved in helping create that was in organic social, the winner of organic social was the one you chose to boost, right? And
Right.
then, of course, when you choose to boost it, now it's paid, right? But it's the same asset. And that never really existed. But the two silos could be separate before, but now within social, they sit right next to each other. And the other thing that I think has caused that crossover is paid influencers, right? Because it used to be that sort of in pure PR, there were folks who were influential, right? They may not have gone by the term influencer, but there were people outside of this traditional press that were still important for PR agencies to talk to and sway into their positive direction. In the last few years, many of those people have become paid influencers, but there's still sort of this weird hybrid where sometimes an influencer will do something that's not paid or it'll be organic, but other times it'll be paid. And I sort of feel like those two elements, like boosting paid social, or boosting social to make it paid, and the fact that an influencer who's storytelling and burnishing the brand, perhaps, that sort of fell in under the PR umbrella in many cases. But there are some agencies on the paid and creative side who wrestled for that as well. It's like it wasn't clear where that belongs, right? It could belong in either one, but I have seen that PR agencies have been somewhat more proactive, particularly the bigger ones have been more proactive in sort of building out paid divisions, especially in social.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, I mean, the influencers of today are really like the equivalent of, the media that we were pitching, 10 years ago. They are the journalists per se, right? And so they should be treated like an outlet, like a media outlet or a possibility. So yeah, I think that influencer marketing is, still very strong. I mean, it's kind of plateaued a little bit and is turning into different types of verticals. But I do think that influencer, before we stopped the done for you services, we called it influencer PR. And, we would integrate an influencer strategy into most PR strategies. And it could be just, organic, where we're targeting influencers just like we would target the media, or it could be on a paid level. So it's super interesting. And I think there's just so many options for brands when it comes to PR. And I believe that, public relations is more of a business practice, and it's not so much marketing or, promotion. It's really a practice, just like SEO. It's something that you constantly always have to have going. It's not updating it once a year. It's not right.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to update our SEO in January.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
when we launch our new website, we'll update the SEO. Okay.
I'm sort of thinking about, not only are influencers publishers of their own right, whether they're sort of acting like a broadcaster or acting like a print publication or journalist. Then I wouldn't say journalist, because there's journalistic standards that come with the word journalists, and I would say some influencers probably don't necessarily ascribe to the journalistic standards you learned at school and you taught when you were teaching. But brands also are sort of taking on the mantle of being publishers and have for many years, right? So now you've got every element of the ecosystem all wearing the publishing hat at some point or another. And so they all need to be taught storytelling, because if they don't know storytelling and they don't know how it impacts SEO and how it impacts the consumer, then they're going to be spinning their wheels.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love the opportunities that brands have to use their own media as being a brand journalist. So whether it's podcasting, having your own podcast, or, doing consistent Facebook Lives, or having your dedicated YouTube channel where you have, the dedicated content coming out on a regular basis. I mean, you have so much control to publish your own content and go direct to audience versus, when I was talking about when we first started the interview, 12 or 15 years ago, public relations hadn't changed in, like 100 years. And now we've had, changes happening like literally every month for the past, 12 or 13 years. And now we're going through what I see right now. It's a huge disruption in technology, in emerging technology with virtual reality and augmented reality and the metaverse, which is, the new big keyword that everybody's buzzword that everybody's talking about. I think that's another reason why I decided to do this kind of like reset, is because I really want to be able to wrap my brain around everything that's happening and how does it apply to public relations and how does it apply to marketing. And, for example, how everybody was, not every business thought that they needed a website back in the day. And I think that, where we're going with the metaverse and these virtual worlds is like, every brand will be part of a virtual world or have a virtual world, just like a website. So there's so much happening right now, just like there was when we met, back in the day, where things were happening so quickly. And I think we're at that point again, where there's so much happening every single month. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some brands are a little bit gun shy for sort of the metaverse and virtual worlds because they still remember all the money they plunked into Second Life that didn't go anywhere really. But on the sort of general earned media category, I think one of the challenges and one of the reasons earned media I think is underinvested by marketers is really they have this short-term focus, right? And
Right.
Paid media, it's very easy to have a short-term focus. You put in, a $10,000 and you know what you get back out for your $10,000. And so it's a myopic short-term thinking, which results in underinvestment in all forms of earned media, including PR, digital PR, SEO, content marketing, and social. And we're always looking for sort of like what's that magic button that we can push at the client side to get them to have that aha moment, to wake up and realize that they're underinvesting. And usually it's the competitive analysis that shows that one of their competitors is kicking their butt. But other than that, have you found any sort of ways of sort of opening up the investment into earned media where it should be from clients?
Yeah, this is actually a trigger subject of mine. I mean, this really, really gets me like fired up because I have helped clients on their whole digital marketing campaign, which includes public relations, and how passionate I am with that. But then I also, was managing clients on their paid side, and the clients would be like, oh, let's increase Facebook advertising $50,000 more this month. Like, meanwhile, that wasn't part of the budget. So where did they get that money? Right. And then public relations over here is like, oh no, we don't have a PR budget. But all of a sudden they can pull 50,000 right away just to throw it at Facebook and not even get a return on investment. Like, that doesn't even matter. They're operating at a loss on Facebook advertising, but that's okay. But they can't dedicate a budget towards public relations, which I always say, if you're not going to do it, your competitors will. And like, that's going to be their competitive advantage. So it's a frustrating conversation to have. And I've tried over the years to find some formula of, okay, if you're spending X amount in paid, then you should be spending, 20% in PR, some sort of formula like that, where it's a way to give some rationale to it. But it's a very tough sell. And in these surveys that you see where the C-suite is surveyed and they're asked, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is public relations? It's a 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is, paid? It's a 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, like, how much budget are you dedicating towards PR? And then it's like 0 or, a very small percentage versus paid. So they say it's important and that it's critical, but they don't invest in it. And I'm sure you see the same thing with SEO.
Yeah, I mean, we try to look at earned media holistically, and I have the sort of SEO team and the digital PR team and regular PR team all sort of clustered together because
Awesome.
they really need to be working in tandem these days. But yeah, I mean, the budgets that end up initially allocated by the clients into the earned media group of initiatives is typically way below where it should be. But and I think it's that short-term thinking that drives that. And I'm not sure if it's the short tenure of marketing folks at the client side that is part of that as well, right? In that CMOs maybe last 2-3 years on average, right? And then, at the sort of VP of digital level, maybe it's a similar tenure, right? And so they won't be around long enough to sort of see some of the SEO benefits, or they may start to get some momentum in 9 months, a year, some serious momentum where all of a sudden it's sort of, we see a lot where there's like this tipping point where you never know when you're going to hit it, but all of a sudden,
right,
with SEO investment, there'll be some kind of tipping point where all of a sudden you'll be firing on many more cylinders. And so the clients that don't invest enough to get there will never get there, right?
Right.
They'll never know what they could have had. And so the opportunity cost is a very difficult thing to sell, right? What you could have had if you had done something.
Yes.
So yeah, we're working with ways to try to package it up. Sometimes it's a matter of finding a way to, given the fact that earned media social, right, is within there, like that might be considered a more palatable direction to invest. And so sometimes we just find that by packaging it up slightly differently, it's more palatable to the decision maker who might be the CFO or the CMO with regards to that. Because at least some of the social stuff is shiny object syndrome, and they sort of feel like I want this because my competition is doing it. Where sort of PR seems like it doesn't seem as sexy. It's sexy to you and me, but it's not sexy to them.
Yeah. And I see it happening where it's, coming from the top down. So if leadership doesn't support PR and they haven't experienced the success in PR, then it's almost impossible to convince up, but if leadership or, especially if, for example, a startup, they made their success based on public relations, like that's what they invested in from the beginning. They're big believers. Like look at Zappos, like it just, the whole idea of like thought leadership being part of the conversation, is huge. But if they're not part of the conversation, then it's going to be a tough sell, and they haven't actually experienced it firsthand. Like it's something that you have to really, 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 really be passionate about and had experienced either for yourself or through another brand that you either worked for or know somebody that worked for. It's really hard to learn what public relations is if you haven't experienced it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I learned a great lesson from my PR team about the fact that it can't always be all about you. Right.
Right.
And sometimes it's actually more about what is the bigger story one layer up. When I was getting ready to put my oceanfront beach house in Fire Island for sale, I said, well, it'd be great for me to get myself some PR. Right. So I brainstormed with my PR team, and I had a few hit lists, from a publication perspective I wanted to go after. And so I pitched completely different stories to the completely different venues as story ideas, not my house. But like, what's the big picture? What's going on? And I got a hit in the mansion section of the Wall Street Journal, and they sent out a photographer to take pictures at the house. And it was like a huge PR hit, but it was because I planted the seed for the story. And then I got to go along for the ride, right? And my kids were super jazzed that like they made it into the Wall Street Journal mansion section with pictures and everything. But, that I think is a lesson that isn't often taught by the PR agency to the client. Like, your business is not exciting to the press, to the press, but there may be something going on where what you're doing or who you are isn't exciting, or you may obviously the commenting on current events thing is always sort of standard in every sort of standard PR plan. But I think it's really, the epiphany for me was this idea like, well, what's the story? What's the bigger story? What's the story that almost feels like a scoop to the reporter? And can you pitch that as opposed to pitching yourself, right? Because pitching yourself seems selfish, but you can get to go along for the ride if the story's good, right? And so you never know whether, and you could even, I've even gotten left out of the story that I pitched. And that's fine. I mean, you build a relationship with that reporter at that point because you pitched the story and they got a great story out of it. You ended up not being in it, but that's sort of brownie points for the future.
It is. Yeah, that's so true. And you bring up a really good point that, the journalist is still part of the equation in PR. The journalist, I like to say that the journalist used to be the gatekeeper, and now we have all these other opportunities and they're not the gatekeeper. They still are the gatekeeper, and they're still part, one vertical within PR that's very important and extremely influential. Because you're getting your story one to many and one to a new audience when you are going through a journalist or a reporter or, a producer if it's something, that's video oriented. So the journalist is definitely part of the equation, and there's still that pitching process that is super important. And there's a lot of no's that happen before you get a yes. And even when you get a yes, it might not even ever come to fruition. So it's just, it's one of those, it's like sales, you have to, have that mindset, patience, and it's over time, and you build momentum, and you're not going to get that big sale like the first day. Typically, it's going to take a lot of little sales.
Right. One of the other fun areas that we didn't touch on that I think has untapped potential is for marketers co-creating content with people within their ecosystem. Even if they're not an influencer per se, but it could be someone they buy from, someone they sell to, right? And they could be co-creating content with those other organizations, and it provides for sort of an instant story because you already have a pre-existing relationship with either the individual or the organization. And I think that's sort of left out of a lot of earned media plans, is this idea like, okay, who do we already have a positive relationship with? It's not going to be a home run necessarily, but it might be some really great content, and it may still be part of the backfill of a really great earned media plan. Have you been pitching sort of co-creation of content for clients into their ecosystems at all?
I mean, that's definitely been part of the strategy. And I agree, it's something that is untapped and a lot of times just completely missed when it comes to it. I'm actually doing it myself with my new business model, is I'm going and, talking to, looking at partnering up and collaborating with my network on where it makes sense to bring them in front of my audience and, take what I'm doing in front of their audience. And, it's a win-win, and it's also a give, and it's really makes so much sense, right, in this world. And that's really what public relations is all about. And, SEO, like holistically with PR and social media, it's all about the give, and you're not going to just get this like viral piece of content, with one piece of content typically, right?
Yeah, exactly. The band who only ever recorded one song and it's the hit, that's pretty rare.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, it was great brainstorming about SEO, PR, and social media with you, because clearly you're still very passionate about it. You're just pointing that passion in a different direction, right, from an education perspective. So I look forward to seeing what your course looks like when you launch it.
Definitely. Well, thank you for having me as your guest. It's been great. And if anybody wants to connect with me, just reach out to me on LinkedIn, and happy to answer any questions.
That's great. Thanks so much, Lisa.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.